Fission radio show with your host, Lonnie Clark. We stand together and accept that we now live in a world transformed by Fukushima. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time here on UCY.TV radio. We relentlessly engage every ear that listens. We expose and confront the complete lack of accountability for the nuclear industry. Consider social engineering programs who view our bodies, minds, and souls as assets on a balance sheet. We discuss vital current issues, interview activists, and engage our audience in an effort to allow all voices to be heard. The Age of Fission radio show creates a venue that all will choose. We encourage our listeners to reclaim their power and their courage to take action and save our planet from the ravages of greed and indifference. Our actions matter. Every voice matters. We remind our listeners that happiness is resistance. Love is greater than fear. Good morning, UCY.TV radio listeners. This is Lonnie Clark with the Age of Fission radio show. Thank you for joining us. We're actually pre-recording an interview with Shawn McGee of nuclearnews.net and our European correspondent on Libby Halevi's show, the Nuclear Hot Seat. Sorry about that, Libby. I stumbled over that. Shawn, thank you for joining us. I really appreciate your time. It's been very helpful to have you on our show.
Oh, no, it's good to be with you, Lonnie. It's, as I said, we've been having a lot of news and information coming out over the last few days. It seems that they've been trying to cram it in. I was going to try starting with an American story, actually, which I think is kind of hasn't been put out there very much. Now, I think we were talking before the show about the NODAPL sort of issue.
The DAPL, no DAPL.
No DAPL. And so basically what we're seeing is these pipelines are now going to all be, the permits are all going to be fast-tracked. And not only just the two that we were talking about, the XL and the DAPL one. Basically, we're talking also about all the others that he wants to do. He's also going to be cutting a lot. He gets a lot of his pipe work and metal work, from Asia and Europe. So he's going to be. I think Germany's going to be quite badly affected. The UK, Ukraine actually also has been selling a lot of pipes to America. So that obviously their economy is pretty bad anyway. So that's going to be a bit of a knock. So basically what we'll be looking at is, a contraction of American sort of manufacturing back into America. Not necessarily a bad idea, although it would have been nice if it was done in a kind of, friendly way, but it looks like he's going hell for leather on it. Now, of course, with this, I think it's not so much to do with creating jobs, because a lot of it's mechanized anyway nowadays. But what it is really, it's about freeing up all these permits. Now, on the 23rd, I think it came out in the evening over in America, so but this is a story that I haven't seen anywhere, and it was actually behind a paywall on Law 360. They managed to get hold of this, and there's been a couple of bills that they've put in. Now, the first one is to do, this is obviously to do with America. Now, the first one is that they're supposed to be helping consumers in the existing power industry and to help the development of new nuclear reactor technologies. Now, so what they mean basically by that is that it comes in two parts. One is basically to do with the reactors that we have, that you guys have, that are planned and what have you, and it's going to be cutting the permits and fast-tracking those. And also there's going to be money going into, so it's bailing out the nuclear industry, basically, money going into the research and development of new nuclear. And we're seeing the same thing in the UK. There was literally a couple of days ago, Theresa May also came out with the same thing. And in her case, she was beating about the bush, but bottom line is a lot of that research and development will be going into nuclear companies. Now, we had Rolls-Royce recently have just been taken through the courts, and they were done for bribery and corruption, which is unbelievable. This is Rolls-Royce. Now, you may not realise that there's great deals with America and everything, but they're trying to create small reactors. Now, so they will...
The small modular reactors, right?
Yeah.
They're putting some in Idaho, for sure.
Yeah, and also investing in fusion, that old nutshell they've been trying to work on for 40 years. Now, the bottom line there is that what we're going to be seeing is we're going to see, from the UK perspective anyway, we're going to be seeing the money. I think they paid something like 300 million in fines. So, but nobody's gone to prison. There's no, usual thing. Nobody's been held accountable. They just paid a load of money. And they were given about 500 million a couple of years ago, so it's like from the taxpayer. But now they're going to be getting more money going in to sort of bail them out, which will be part of this research money and what have you. And over in America, what we're seeing with these two bills that have come in, it's the Fair Rates Act, I believe it would be called. And so it would be for Advanced Nuclear Technology Development Act of 2017, and it's going to direct the U.S. Department of Energy, who's run by a guy who didn't even know that it was mostly a nuclear sort of, Department of Energy is 60-70% goes into nuclear weapons and nuclear energy and what have you. So that's where this money's going, basically, and everything's being fast-tracked. So, I would presume with that also we'll be talking about nuclear weapons development and things like this, which was always on the cards. So, and then further down the line, they've also talked about small modular reactors and fusion as well, which is all that is basically is for these companies, these nuclear companies, just to, they get a bit of money, they get their bailout. It's like a bailout thing because, they can't make these small modular reactors cost effective.
Well, they can't make any nuclear reactors. Look, I don't know how you feel about
the Rolls-Royce reactors that they had in the Trident submarines. They were suffering from the same cracks that we're seeing in all the EDF reactors. Now they're saying, it's because of the carbon content and what have you. But I think there's just there's also issues around them putting in running the fuel rods for longer, and they call it high burn-up fuel, which means they just burn the reactors for the fuel rods for longer to get more out of them. But I think the heat coefficients are slightly, it gets slightly hotter, causes a little bit more damage, goes, it starts pushing the limit of what the reactor casings were designed to do. So we're finding, in these nuclear reactors that all the Trident submarines were pulled in, and they've got the same problems in these are small reactors, obviously, in their sort of shell. So we're seeing the same sort of problems basically in the big reactors as the small ones that they are using now. So and of course. So that was just one little story, and it does tie in. I mean, you can't really talk about American nuclear without, even though Trump's saying, we're going to have it for America, they're also doing deals with Russia, because Russia actually has, Rosatom sells all the fuel rods and all this, and they've got the manufacturing base for that. The UK failed miserably trying to deal with these MOX fuel rods. They've closed that down. I don't think they have that sort of project in America. They have to get it from elsewhere. So these are all these under the hand deals, and they were being done by Obama, and everybody else as well, even though Russia is supposed to be the big boogeyman. All these deals like with TEPCO and Russia, they're going on, so TEPCO or the Japanese nuclear industry can buy from Russia and then pass on, do a little bit of processing and then pass it on to to America. So anyway, I think what we're being sort of told, the Cold War meme, is really all about ramping up the military and and obviously nuclear weapons.
Oh, that's for sure. Have you looked at the website of the White House? It's all about the military and the police. This is why people are freaked out. Like me as an American, I wasn't that freaked out about Donald Trump a month ago. Every day that passes, more and more stuff raises the hair on the back of my head. It's like, Rick, do you know that Rick Perry, the man he wants to put as the head of the Department of Energy, where it's actually more than 80% of their budget goes to nuclear if you dig into it, which I did when I first got involved in this because I read budgets.
Sure.
Rick Perry has a Bachelor's of Arts degree, which is a 4-year degree in animal sciences. That's his background.
It was animal husbandry or something.
That's right. It's animal sciences. It is husbandry. That's all it is. And, he sat on the board of this nuclear waste company that caused a huge problem. They built a pipeline, literally, that broke. It's caused a massive problem in Texas. But I think his appointment of Rick Perry is an indication of where the Department of Energy knows this is going. Their job is going to be managing waste. It's not about really building new projects because the new projects are going to take 10 to 15 years. They're not going to do them quickly. But they know that we have a massive, massive, massive waste problem in this country that's only going to get exponentially worse. So they want somebody who's willing to callously look away and go, what? You just throw some dirt on it. It'll be fine.
Sure. I've got to say what they did in the UK, because they're talking about TTIP and TPP and all this kind of thing. Now America has one-to-one deals with countries. It doesn't need TTIP. All right, the corporations all are international. So whether they're based in the UK, US, Japan, wherever. They all, Mitsubishi, is basically an American company, but it is also based in Japan.
Yeah.
So the TTIP and the TPP was just a way that I think they wanted to secure their base in a kind of a legal sense. But the fact is that they will carry on regardless, And in the UK, what a lot of people didn't realise, before Brexit and everything, was that TTIP has all the rules for TTIP have already been brought in, and so if I was to compare what might happen in America, and I think it is happening because we're looking at the EPA now are getting a short shrift. And also they're sort of like saying things like, well, the water quality, they don't have to report on it, and they can bury, waste products in, underneath aquifers and things like this, and pipelines across water. So we're seeing a lot less of, should we say, impetus to deal with the environmental side of the equation between profit and environmental sort of support. Now in the UK, what they did quite early on, and I think this just before I got kicked out, actually, I discovered that they were doing things like burying sort of slightly higher level waste, the medium level waste in landfills. When they had contaminated soil, what they would do is they'd put so much soil over the top of it with maybe a thin layer of concrete, and that would do that. They weren't really long term, and they weren't looking at where that would end up in the water table or whatever, or if there was flooding later on, how that might move in the environment. They were basic, because in the UK, it plays down the effects of climate change, and the fact is that we're seeing the change in climate, shall we say, right now. We're getting much worse flooding in this part of the world. And that's not been taken into account. A report, I'll actually might bring it up a bit later, but there's a report that came out to do with the nuclear power plant and how the UK plays down the sort of findings, the projected sort of weather patterns, if you like, and they push it further down the line. And of course they do it in the USA as well. and they do it in Australia. Now, they're the three countries that where you go online, and there's a lot of people paid to. I mean, I have to deal with quite a few of them myself. A lot of people are paid to sort of say, "Oh, you know, climate change, it doesn't exist," and all this, you know. And I do know that there's quite a few people on the online circuit who actually can get quite good money.
Yeah, I read that they pay a person to have 8 profiles. They pay them about $45,000 a year to maintain 8 profiles. That's what, I don't know the veracity of that story, but I read that last year. So I don't doubt it. I mean, this is the reality. If they had any conscience, this is the interesting thing, running into people who are not bad people, but like they really believe that Donald Trump is going to bring jobs home to America, that he's going to protect us, that he's going to help us. They genuinely believe that he is going to help our country, and it is, those are the ones that are going to fall the hardest when they start to see what happens to them after this, a year and a half. These are basically neoliberal ideas. I mean, this is, you know.
The one thing I would, from a kind of a historical basis here, if we looked at, you know, and I'm very left-wing, by the way, right? So don't bite me head off here. But in late 20s, early 30s, Germany, Hitler basically, he rebuilt the economy by rebuilding the arms, by making roads.
That's right.
And by building infrastructure.
That's right.
He also made sure that people got food.
That's right.
So the bottom line is I'm not necessarily comparing him with Hitler now. I know apparently he has a book of Hitler's sayings or something.
Does he really?
I have no idea if that, I don't know if that's true or not. But the bottom line is though is that
wow.
that you know those sort of they weren't necessarily national socialists, but they were actually socialist ideas, which you know we have in Europe. That's why we have, you know, an integrated sort of system of energy, you know, and energy grids, and you know, we have integrated systems of measurements, and you know, standards of you know, of house building, and all these kind of things, and that's because we're a social democratic. You know, a lot of Europe is social democratic. Now, you know. When you throw in the national thing, then okay, then you start getting the national socialist thing, you know. But the bottom line is, there's nothing wrong if he actually does do these things, and they will be good for America. But the way I'm sort of looking at it, I don't think the corporations will put the money into it. But I might be wrong. You know, they might think, and there was in Davos recently, a lot of the big money people were saying, maybe we push this austerity thing a bit too far, you know, because, you know, at the moment they've got all this money in offshore and it's not doing anything, you know, and they can't take it out because there's nothing going on anywhere, you know. So it's
well, this is the bottom line with Trump. Yeah, I think that the Republican Party is going to feed the American people candy for the next 2 years. They're going to create jobs. They are going to pass. Ironically, the reconstruction of our roads. I mean, American roads are an abomination. Our airports look like 1950s. We don't even have decent train, decent rail. So we do need a massive reconstruction of our infrastructure. The issue is this: it's all going to be subcontracted out. We will have jobs, but those jobs will not have regulations to protect workers because they're rolling back all those regulations. We'll not have environmental regulations. So for the first 3 years, we're going to feel great, and that'll be long enough for the Republicans to win again, and they might even be able to pull it off for 4 more years to get him in for 8 years. But at the end of 8 years, we are going to... I make this analogy that America is like a battered wife. An abuser doesn't come in and start punching you in the face the first night. When you hook up with an abuser, they push you, they harass you, they call you names, they lie to you and tell you you're making things up, you don't understand the truth, they confuse you. This is exactly what Hitler did, and it is exactly what Trump is doing, and I am comparing him to Hitler. I don't mind. I think he is a fascist, frightening person, and I'm more I have more anxiety about what I call the American Taliban, which is Vice President Pence, than I do Trump, because Trump is a typical narcissist abuser, but Pence is devious.
To be honest, I can see the concerns, and there's definitely, you're not alone with those concerns.
I know, and thank God for that. And this is not 1932. We are not going to watch our neighbors get hauled off to death camps. Sorry, it's not going to happen.
And there's a lot more people. There's, and there's to be honest, I have to say, with all the things that are going on in America, I mean, what I did notice before, in American history, going back 20, 30 years or so, 40 years maybe, when you had a very right wing, very similar kind of, and you had all the sort of the red menace and all that kind of thing, and Hoover doing his stuff, and all, there's lots of really, really crazy stuff going on, and with the Americans, when they're pushed so far, they tend to swing back, and there is a lot of people saying that this is a very likely thing to happen, and maybe these a lot of people that have never been out sort of demonstrating, maybe because they're too tired, they're too fearful, or all the other reasons why people haven't been getting out on the streets and sort of should be claiming their rights, so they've got out now, and so maybe people will become more engaged, maybe people will dig in, maybe people will spend less time on television and more time trying to consume information and discussing information, And
you're so naive, Shawn, really.
Well,
okay.
To be honest...
Let's hope so. I hope you're right. I will hope you're right, because...
I'm the world's greatest pessimist, but I have seen this before. You follow history, and in America...
Are you there, Shawn? Hello? Shawn? Are you there?
But what I would say is that it is a possibility. Maybe not the flares, but but certainly the ideas. And you have some great thinkers. And this show is another one. We're sitting here, we're discussing across the oceans, ideas, and we're talking about history, and we're talking about how things have swung. Right, Hitler was there, but hey, you know what? He wasn't there for very long.
True.
Hoover was there, and COINTELPRO was there, and now we've got Snowden and WikiLeaks, and so there is kickback already to this system, and what we don't want to say is that everybody, and I've been targeted by security services, but I also know for a fact that the security services, they have families too.
Right, they're human beings. Their children will also die of nuclear pollution. Let's just talk reality.
Well, there's not just that. There's all the pollution.
Yeah.
Oil and everything else.
Chemical,
so the bottom line is that Snowden, he's an amazing person who turned around earning $70,000, living in Hawaii, having a great time, makes a decision to move to Russia.
Well, I don't think he made a decision to move to Russia.
Well,
the United States...
Get the hell out of the UK, get the hell out of the US. But
he ended up there because, let's be clear, the Americans took his passport before he went to South America.
Yeah, totally, absolutely. So the bottom line was, though, he did an amazing thing, and no matter what he did, he knew that. I mean, when he was sitting there in you could see, if you watch the film, which was live with. Was it Laura Poitras actually filming him, and you could see how nervous he was, and and he really didn't think he was going to get, he'd get on that plane and he'd be flying anywhere. He really thought that he'd be, in Guantanamo Bay or somewhere similar, and he knew exactly what to expect, because he knew, Binney and all these, in Drake and all these whistleblowers, what happened to them. And he knew that what he'd done was going to be, even worse, because he did the worst thing possible, in terms of what the way the security services looked at it. But the bottom line is that those people are there. They made those decisions. There are other people that have made those decisions. I'm only a small small bean in the pie as you are and other people are, but we all add up, And
right, every drop fills the cup. That's exactly right. Every drop matters. That's why every voice matters. That's why, I've accepted the challenge of doing this radio show 5 days a week to give venue to a lot of people, because we do need to talk to all parties, and I think it's very important for us to make a decision. And in fact, this is the hard part. I have talked to people that are nuclear scientists. They are grotesquely misinformed about the facts. I've noticed. They really...
Well, it can vary. See, the thing is that, as I said, when I think in a previous podcast we were talking about the fact that I've been talking with nuclear guys, and some of those guys have had second thoughts that they've been picking up the facts that I've been giving them. They may not agree with all of them, but there's some facts there that are that are facts, and they can't get around them.
Well,
and
just look at this week's page on your page. I mean, if our listeners have not found your website, I strongly recommend it. It's nuclear-news.net, and it is really one of the most comprehensive sites that I've seen for a variety of stories. I mean, and it's really, you guys have done an outstanding job of bringing information to people. If they want to find out the real truth, go there, because it is really... I mean, you read the story and you're like, oh my God, is it really that bad? But you know what? We have to be adults and face this. And sure. I love this picture that you put up this week of the wind things, or this, the more of this or less of this, because that's one of the things with the nuclear stuff. It really does strip the planet. Nuclear is not clean and green. It takes a lot to build a nuclear plant, to keep it going. It's a really horrible... a failed idea. Sure. idea.
Well, Christina McPherson, she's really hot on the thorium thing, the mini reactors, and she has huge battles with, and we've actually found out in the past that I actually got contacted by one of her trolls, and because I engaged with them, and I was kind of decent. They've been really horrible to her. She's 70 old, right? And I said, look, what are you doing? I said, let's engage. You talk about this. And then I engaged, but I did it in a nice way. And in the end, I got an email one day, and I sort of looked at it, and the name on the email, it was a Gmail thing, and it had the name of one of the trolls. And I'm like, huh? And it had a social media company address, website, URL. And I clicked on it, and there was 8 girls there, behind their computers, and they're obviously single mums and things like that. They were all married women. They were trying to make a living, and they were given this job, and they were cut and pasting all their sort of comments, and they were given sort of tasks, people to keep up on and have a go at, and stop, drop links and be rude and all these sort of things, just trying to stop that, to try and annoy them, get in the way. It was all the things that actually Edward Snowden put out in the JTRIG training manual, which was the GCHQ training manual, how to undermine social media networks, in the comment section and various other ways. And the actual training manual is on, you can go to the Intercept and read the damn thing. They've got the actual plates that they show to these trainee security services guys. But it's a similar thing that they're taught in these social media networks. And as you're saying, some of them are probably paid fairly well. I think those ladies were probably just paid a normal wage, to do this. Times are hard. But what they'd done, they'd contacted me. I don't know which one it was, but it was one of them, and she just wanted us to know that it was just a job for her, So I contacted Christina. I sent her the URL.
That's an odd thing. It's just a job for her.
Yeah. And so I contacted Christina, because Christina was quite angry, and she thought this was a guy, but it was actually a woman. And one of 8 women, they could have been taking turns doing it. But anyway, one of them's contacted me. I've sent it off to her, and she's gone, oh, right. And then she was able to sort of take a step back, not trying to engage them so much and trying to ignore them and just get on with what she was doing, in terms of her posting and things, And they're still at it. There's probably other people doing it now. But the bottom line is that that's kind of how the system works, and people don't realise this. These same people will be on the comment section of newspapers, on the comment sections of YouTubes, putting in vile sort of things. I mean, the way I've always dealt with it is that I always put in links to WikiLeaks. I put in links to The Intercept, Edward Snowden. I go off, I pay, and the reason I do that is because I know that they are, and I've actually engaged one that was on Naomi Wolf's page, and I knew that it was probably a security service. It's probably maybe Israeli. I wasn't too sure, but anyway, he was being quite aggressive and rude and disruptive, should we say. So I engaged with him. I said, "Oh, how you going, man?" And then I turned around and I said, "Look, guess what? I think you might be a troll, but I'm probably wrong. But look, here's a link," and I gave him a WikiLeaks, and I said a WikiLeaks link. And I said, what's on the third line down? I said, if you tell me what's on the third line down, I know that that you're not who I think you are.
That's funny.
And so what he did, he was turning around. He was posting, all of a sudden he's gone, "Oh, I have to go to bed now. I haven't got time to do that." Right? And what he was saying to me was like the game was up, right? And he wasn't allowed to. If he'd have gone onto that site and read that third line down, he would have got the sack. Because the a lot of people in corporations, especially in security and the military, are not allowed to go on WikiLeaks, right? They're not allowed to go on the Intercept. They're banned.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So what I do quite often when I'm engaging somebody I know who's using those sort of troll techniques, is that I will actually do that sort of thing. I'll start throwing those links out. Now there's two reasons why they'll stop. One, right, is because they don't want you to keep putting these links up, because people will start clicking on them, going, "Oh, what's he on about?" And so that they can't allow you to encourage it, yeah. So basically, it's just and the other thing, if you want to engage with them, be nice, get in there, be nice, and then all of a sudden hit them with a link and say, "Look, what's the third one down? I'm pretty sure you're a kosher guy, but could you, it's really interesting to say on Naomi Wolf's site, because because they're probably all from Israel, these guys, but they're not allowed to go on the site. So they know the game's up, and it's like you're playing a kind of game of chess, When I'm being attacked, by the pro-nuclear guys, and they're all military 9 times out of 10, because they're, especially if they're nuclear, you just start hitting them with all these links, and and to be honest with you, I can't get engagement now for about a year and a half now. I haven't been able to get any engagement from, and I know these trolls by their names, whether it's Star Viking on the Japan Times or whoever, and that they will not engage me. The only ones I get to engage are just happen to be nuclear workers who just come in, and they're just sort of defending what they've been taught, as we were discussing, and then you start hitting them with some of the facts, the logical facts, because you can't necessarily argue with the science. You can't, you can a bit, you can do it a bit, but you've got to do it with logic as well. You put the two together, then you can start, and as I said, I think on a previous podcast, I had one guy from America, from the UK, and I only had 2 of them having a go at me at that one, and there was an American as well, and the American lady just wouldn't even click a link, but the English guy was going, "Well, what's all this about?" And he's obviously checking it out, and then after about 45 posts or something, he turned around and he said, "Well, actually, you're both right," which is actually a real, for him to say that is a real achievement. But he was just a genuine sort of nuclear worker, and he learned something. You with me?
Yeah.
That everything isn't cut and dry. Now, obviously, he can't step forward and go, "Oh, yeah, no, you're totally right," because at the end of the day, he might lose his job. Mm-hmm. So what they tend to do then is they'll drop off quite quickly. But then you've kind of taught them something, So I think there is room for engagement if you know the arguments, you know how to do it. whether that's talking about a multitude of things where, it could be human rights, and then, you've got these trolls coming in, they're trying to disrupt that, and then you just start dropping loads of WikiLeaks, WikiLeaks links, God bless Julian Assange, and The Intercept, obviously, with Edward Snowden and Glenn Greenwald and all these amazing people, Jeremy Scahill. So, and all they'll ever do is they can do ad hominem attacks. But if you're just hitting them with the facts, Oh, sorry, excuse me. Oh my lord.
That's
hang
okay.
on a
We like that song.
Yeah. Hello. Hi, who is it?
Okay, folks. So we're on the interview with Shawn McGee, and he kind of got interrupted, had to answer the phone. So just hang tight with him. He'll be back in just a second. So I guess this is the music. I should have just let that music keep playing, huh? So that is where we're at. And I think it's very important for all of us to actually learn how to engage each other and engage people who don't agree with us. And engage people that, what I do? I follow the NEI, which is National Energy Institute, I think, or NEI. It's on Twitter. And you know what makes them stop every time is when I ask them about nuclear waste. Because it's not like the nuclear industry has a stalwart record of perfectly handling the waste and knowing what to do about it. It is a growing problem. It is the elephant in the room. It's the reason that we all hate nuclear energy. There's nothing wrong with nuclear energy except that it kills everyone at the end. It produces a product that only is used for war. So look, while Shawn's on this phone call, he had to take this pretty rapidly, so maybe he's coming back.
Oh, that's a bit weird. That was on Garda Síochána, by the way.
What
That's
was
the
that?
Irish police. The Irish police. I had a bike nicked earlier.
Oh, that's a drag.
And then I found the bike later.
Oh, good.
So he was just getting back to me to say, I've just heard you got the bike back, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, that was weird timing.
Yeah, what time? What time is it? Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That's a weird time to call you at midnight. What if you were like a regular, an early person, went to bed at 9 o'clock, they call you at like midnight? That's an odd time. We're calling Shawn at midnight at night to pre-record this interview, so that's peculiar.
So I'm just checking. I'm now just checking my my thing. No, I haven't got Garda Síochána back on the network.
Well, I was just about to start talking about your page, and I was saying how, this is the issue with nuclear energy. It's not the nuclear energy we don't like; it's the nuclear waste we don't like. I go onto Twitter and I follow NEI, and anytime any of those pro-nukers try to tell me, I say, really? So what are we doing about the nuclear waste? Tell me your answer for that. The solution. We're not talking about burying your trash under piles of dirt. We're talking about resolving this and turning nuclear waste, remediating it completely. That shuts them up pretty quickly, for real. Then they then they go into name calling and tell me I'm delusional. You know what I mean? It's really outrageous, the level of denial. I mean, this is why we're talking about it. It's the nuclear waste, Shawn.
I mean, George Monbiot, who attacked Chris Busby, he came out, all of a sudden he came out in favour of nuclear. And he did an article the other day, and he was going on about, I think it was the American Energy Alliance and somebody else, and he was going on about oil. He was going about the climate change in oil, right, and the big interests. And the only thing is that it stuck in my mind was that, and he was talking about the Koch brothers as well. And the Koch brothers and the Energy Alliance, they're pro-nuclear, okay? So he's having a go at the organisations that are pro-nuclear without mentioning the word nuclear, only mentioning their oil contacts, because they have both, you know. Mm-hmm. There's a swing war between the CEOs of nuclear and fossil fuel. But the point is that he couldn't mention nuclear. It was really weird. It would have been a really good article if he'd rounded it up and brought in the nuclear energy and the weapons and but when you actually get him and you talk to him about the waste, he goes, oh yeah, the waste is a bit of a problem,
right?
You know.
Oops.
All right, and he's the guy. But the thing is that once he attacked Chris Busby, I think it was basically MI5 went up to him. Because Chris is doing a lot of stuff against the Ministry of Defence. It's going to cost them a lot of money if Chris wins his cases, you know. And I think they did a big disinfo
They
thing on it.
have the money. This is the thing that's shocking.
Yeah, they do, but the point is they don't want to be giving it to the British nuclear test veterans because, like, see, the thing is that the soldiers are just, they're pawns. You use them and then you throw them away, and that's what they do all over the world. Unfortunately, and of course myself and Chris, we're supposed to be we're peaceniks if you like, but we're actually defending the soldiers. I'm actually Irish. I'm defending English soldiers. So, but the point is at the end of the day, we've got soldiers in Ireland as well, but they never got near the nuclear stuff. But there are soldiers in Australia and New Zealand. They've got Irish backgrounds, so it all kind of connects, But at the end of the day, it's all really about not only are the soldiers being contaminated, but so the people in Fukushima, and so are the people in near Sellafield and downwind of nuclear power plants.
Yeah.
As you're saying, as we were discussing about how the UK and how the America is going to do the same thing, is to relax the how you can bury stuff. They're doing that in Japan. They have to. Where they're just putting soil over the top, or they're throwing it in the sea, or they're incinerating it and putting it up in the air, and they're just spreading it around because they think.
Wasn't it Levi Halevi that reported that they're building the Olympic Stadium out of reclaimed wood right out from Fukushima?
I don't want to know.
Really?
I think at the end of the day, it's absolutely crazy stuff, because we see a lot of people in Japan. Now, you can go to areas in Japan where the radiation's low, the soil readings are low and everything else, but you can go to other spots that are maybe further away and you've got high readings, you've got one microsievert if you put your Geiger counter near the ground. There's contamination, some contamination at least in Tokyo. There's, certainly Chiba was a thing I was talking with Timothy Maso about. He was saying he was going to go there and get a baseline for his Geiger counter readings and soil readings and what have you, and checking out the butterflies. But when he went there, he was getting like 0.4 microsieverts per hour. This was just a couple of years afterwards, so he couldn't use that area. And that was an area that obviously there's a lot of water and there's lots of plains and there's kind of high spots, and it's where the snow would have fallen and where the contamination washes down off the higher mountains, where a lot of contamination went all the way down the spine of Japan. Wow. So it's there's a lot of misinformation.
Wow.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of misinformation and what have you. So I think at the end of the day, we're basically, there are people obviously who are trying to dig into this, with the limited funding they have, and so at the end of the day, we just have to give them the support that we can give them, and fortunately, if we're doing what we're doing, we're getting that information out. We're letting other people know that this is the case. And, Timothy Maso, a lot of his, he's done 70 peer-reviewed articles, and they've been battled all the way, and some he's got through, and most he's got through, some maybe he hasn't. But the bottom line is what he's got through is evidence of radiation damage, which is what the nuclear industry denies categorically. Once you can prove that, then it's kind of, you've won a logical point, So I think at the end of the day, we will sort of see, and the reason why Chris Busby and people like that are so heavily targeted is because they're so on the ball. I mean, I think Chris actually put up the video, where I think it was from 2009, where he was talking from the guy who just left the ICRP. Actually, sorry. So that's the nuclear sort of measuring people. They're the ones that decide how much radiation you can have. And the guy actually turned around and said, well, now I've left, I can tell you, the actual way they measure radiation, it's not fit for purpose, basically. And this was a guy who was,
wow.
In the charge of the ICRP, And if you go on to Radioactive Bar, which is Chris Busby's site, you can actually check that out. And I'll be putting up on nuclear-news.net, I think, actually, as well. But it's where he and this guy basically has this conversation. So it's quite interesting. Actually, I'll give you his name, actually, because I think that's important. It's Chris Busby, and there's other videos out there with this as well, by the way. But it's Chris Busby. I just want to get the name right. And it starts with a V, and my computer's being slow now. Fantastic. It's Chris Busby and Valentin. All right, Valentin. Right, so it's Busby Valentin. If you type that in on YouTube, you'll find
Dr. Jack Valentin.
Exactly, and it's it's 1 hour and 20 minutes. It's well worth a view.
September 29th, 2010.
210 is it? I thought it was 2009. But anyway, the point is that the argument they were having, or not the argument, the discussion they were having, was very much about the same discussion that was being had in the British nuclear test veterans case. Now, the judge actually turned round and said, I'm just going to go with the British scientists, the MOD scientists. And, I think Chris at the moment has found a couple of points of law where they can challenge it, so they can take it back into the court again. And it's a slow process, and but at the end of the day, I've looked at that, and I think one of their experts walked in and went, no, 100, you're not going to have any, you can't prove any health effects under 100 millisieverts per year, all right? And the fact is you can.
What? So this is the abuse. This is the abuse.
Who was actually the head of the World Health Organization radiation unit before it got shut down. He was the guy that actually discovered the thyroid cancers after Chernobyl. He actually did just before the court case. He actually, or while the court case was it was before the court case. He actually did a big article about how wrong this particular expert was, and how incompetent and how dangerous her advice was. And other people did as well. I mean, Ian Goddard did a video which just busted her totally. It was Geraldine Thomas, Professor Geraldine Thomas. And without a doubt, the judge must have come across that. But when she walked in, she said, you can't prove there's any damage under 100 microsieverts per year. And she didn't care if there was kids or whatever. She just said everybody or anything at all. It was really, it was very bad advice. But the judge accepted it because in the UK, they've decided that there is something called the right science. Science can no longer be debated now over there. It's like
what? The right science. Right science.
What you have is it's the exact same thing that happened with the cigarettes. Well, it actually started off with Galileo, where you had scientists saying, Galileo, there's no way the Earth, well, I'm sure this will be contentious to some people out there, but there's no way the Earth is round, we're circling the sun, it's flat, and we have the firmament, and they had scientists that were arguing that, right? And then coming more up to date in 1950s, we had the cigarette companies who employed scientists to say that cigarettes were good for you, or they certainly didn't cause cancer. And it was only until in 1992 when one of those scientists walked out with all the paperwork which the cigarette companies had, proving that it caused cancers, right? And he did a whistleblow, right? And that's the only reason that we know that cigarettes cause cancer, right? And because that whistleblower walked out with the cigarette company's own documentation on it. And I have no doubt, and because of the way Chris was blocked getting a lot of the information, they even sent Special Branch, which is a MI5, sort of public version, around to people, even in Australia, to get a file, which was part of his case to prove that radiation, his case for the British nuclear test veterans. And they actually sent these guys around to take this information, which was top secret, then was released in Australia because it went into a court, so it's public knowledge, and then they made it top secret again, And in the UK, they also made all nuclear information top secret. The month I left the UK was the month that they brought in the new secrets law, which said that all nuclear information, of which I'd posted loads on the internet, PDFs.
What year was that, Shawn?
2014, April 2014, I came to Ireland. And I came to Ireland because I knew. And what they did, not only did they make it illegal to, but it wasn't illegal. What it is, they made it top secret. They made it officially sensitive, is the exact term they created. And it meant it could only be discussed in universities, and the information couldn't be taken out of universities, right? It couldn't be shared with the public. So bottom line was that not only were they going to make that illegal, including health information as well, which is a side issue, but very relevant to when you're trying to do epidemiological studies and things, but they were making this nuclear information, retroactively. And this is why I left, making it retroactively illegal, meaning that all the stuff I put up on Any News, which, Any News admin is not going to pull down, right, because I did talk to them about it, and it's up there for good. Now I couldn't get that taken down, but that means that technically in the UK, if they make a specific PDF that I shared, or information from a PDF I shared, or information about nuclear isotopes or whatever that I shared on Any News at some point, I did share a lot of stuff on Any News for a year or two there, that basically, because I was documenting on that particular blog, and so what happened was that they could then lock me up for 2 or 3 years because of this information.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
Because they could retroactively say, right, we're going to make that PDF illegal, and look, he's taken a big section out of it. So, if you can't take it down, then he's actually broken the Official Secrets Act, and we can lock him up.
Well, that was about the same time here in Oregon, I was told by Senator Ron Wyden. He went to Fukushima 4 times, and I got engaged in this in 12, so it was probably 2013.
December.
Something like that, right?
October. No, it was actually October when they brought the official Japanese Secrets Act.
Yeah, well, when Ron Wyden came back, he literally told me, his office told me, after the 3rd visit, when he went there the 4th time, because I had been calling to see what was up and what was going on, because we're on the West Coast, and his office basically said, we can't talk to you about it. I'm like, why not? They said, well, it's been placed under national security. It's a national security issue. It's under the Unpatriot Act. Well, they call it the Patriot Act. I call it the Unpatriot Act. And they cannot talk to us about it at all. And I said, you know what? Like, you're telling me that my senator cannot warn his own constituents about the harm being caused by the nuclear industry in another nation. They're like, ma'am, I can't even answer that question. I cannot talk to you about it at all. I said, you're joking me. And they're like, ma'am, we cannot discuss it. I said, well, you know what? They're not going to put him in jail. So I suggest that he break the law because this is outrageous and unconscionable. He has twins. He needs to be warning people about what goes on here. And to this day, they have all clicked their heels and said Sig Heil. I mean, John Goffman did explain the nuclear industry's attitude is underreport the negative effects of radiation by 90% and deny radiation causes harm unless they can prove it. This is their standard.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and that's basically obviously that's the uphill struggle that Chris Busby's been facing. Aside from Chris Monbiot doing the getting copy from the MI5 and then putting it up as an article to attack Chris Busby, and we Stratfor, WikiLeaks once again released a document which showed that in early 2011, Stratfor, which is a big security company that works for governments and corporations, turned around and said that the UK nuclear industry was so powerful, anti-nuclear groups were so powerful that they had to have a close eye on them. And then it was very shortly after that George Monbiot had a moment of genius and decided to go pro-nuclear. But, at the end of the day, he was pressured. And, we are aware now. I mean, there was that guy in Germany who died recently, and he did a video, I think it was sometime last year, and he just sat down. He said, I myself have been approached by the German Secret Service, and they gave me this, and they said, look, could you put this information out? They put this story out, just put your name to it, and post it up on I think it was Deutsche Welle. I think it was anyway, but he was a big German reporter, and he actually came out and he admitted it. He did die recently as well, which is a bit worrying, But the bottom line was that, that could have been for legitimate reasons. So I don't want to start.
I get you. Well, look, we have about 5 minutes left. I just want to give you the heads up that we've got about 5 minutes left. So I want you to be able to get in anything that you feel is urgent or information that people really need to know this week.
Oh, right. I'll tell you what. This is relevant to America and the UK. Trident, right? So
yes.
we have Trident missile heads towards USA, right? Whoops. And but here's the thing, right? Now,
whoops.
Last year they were having a vote on Trident, right? And this thing happened, but they kept it quiet because they didn't want the MPs to vote against the Trident. Like 200 billion investment or something. It's ridiculous for a small country like the UK. And but the bottom line was though they had that one. Now then it came out this week, and the UK said, "Oh, it's we don't want to talk about it. We're not going to confirm it." But the US, somebody in the US came out and said, "Well, yeah, actually, we did. We had this missile coming at us, but luckily it didn't have a nuclear warhead on it. But it was they were aiming the other way. So they were aiming towards Africa, and it went the other way to America. I mean, you can't get more crapped up than that. So it's not like it went off by a few degrees."
That really does not inspire confidence in them.
It does it? It means if they were in the English Channel firing it at France, it would have blown up London, But all right, so there's one thing, right? So anyway, so then an American thing came out, and they were saying, "Oh well, look, there was an article came out, and it was the American military were going, well, we've fired 168 of these, and we've never had a problem, right? And then." Right, just yesterday, it came out in RT, but it was a guy called, it was a Northern Irish guy, a fellow countryman, and he was working on the Trident thing, and he did a whistleblowing last year, and about how bad the actual submarine base itself was, and the security and everything, and he also talked about the running of the actual Trident submarines and what have you, but he turned around and he said. And he was one of these guys that used to fire the missiles. He was on that end of the submarine. He turned around. He said that there's been 4 missiles that have misfired. There were practice missiles, and 4 of them. Right. So it's not just one. Right. So what they were trying to say, the American guys were trying to say, well, it was a bit, they probably might be reaching the end of their time or this or that. They were given various reasons. The articles are on nuclear-news.net.
It's a good article, too. It's a really great article in there.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, it's really shocking.
We've got 3 or 4 of that, and it's the timeline, So one is the minister going, well, we don't talk about that, and then the Americans talking about it, but then they're saying, oh, well, we've had no problems, and that's just one, But actually, there's been 4. There's been 4. The whistleblower stepped forward again. McNally, his name is, and he turned around and said, well, actually, there's been 4.
So, Shawn, we have about a minute and a half left.
Okay, well, I think we've hit a couple of interesting topics, sad topics. We've talked about politics, and I have to say it's been, I would say let's finish off on a positive note. I really do think that this information that's getting out there, we've got whistleblowers like McNally, the ex-Trident guy, we've got WikiLeaks, we've got Snowden, we've got people like you and me and other people, many other people. We've got Abby Martin doing her thing. We've got, busting the Russia's a bad boy, this is a bad boy, that's a bad boy, Assad's a bad boy. At the end of the day, we're all human. We're all making mistakes. We're all pushing for our own little corner of the earth. But the bottom line is we are all human, and we all have children, and we all want to see our children and do better. And as spiritual people, we want to leave the planet, for the animals and for ourselves and everybody else. So at the end of the day, I would say that I think that let's be pessimists. Let's look at the solutions, and there are solutions out there. So I'd finish with that.
That's really awesome. Well, I think I'll leave that. Please put your courage feet on. Join us again tomorrow for the Age of Fission radio show. Thank you for joining us. Please take action.
name is S.M. Gibson, and I am the host of